Chapter 2467. Elder T's tears streamed down his face. Grandma Bu also cried out, "Young lady, hurry and leave. This is our own choice, we were too rash, we can't harm you." As she spoke, she choked with sobs. Her body was weak due to the torture she had suffered earlier. That iron chain was hanging Grandma Bu's hands tightly. She was in so much pain that her entire face was wrinkled, but she was afraid that Yiqing Luo would be worried, so she didn't make a sound. "Young lady, you are still young, don't bury your future here. Don't lose your life because of us two old fellows. Yi is a good lady. She won't blame you. Grandma Bu, don't talk anymore, conserve your energy." Yiqing Luo's lips curled up slightly, comforting her. She walked to Grandma Bu's side and used one hand to support her, lending strength to Grandma Bu to ease the pain from the iron chain. "Young lady." Elder T choked with sobs as he tried to persuade. "Let me untie the iron chain for you first." Yiqing Luo interrupted Elder T's voice. She had just tested the hardness of the iron chain. It was just an ordinary iron chain. It was rather easy to break these iron chains. "Close your eyes, don't be afraid." Yiqing Luo smiled gently. Her voice exuded a reassuring and convincing power. The two Bu elders wanted to say something, but after meeting Yiqing Luo's resolute gaze, they still chose to close their eyes. Back in the Bu family village, Elder T knew that once this young lady decided on something, no one could change her mind. If they didn't want to be a burden to her, then they could only try their best to cooperate with her, and try their best not to be a burden to her. Yiqing Luo took a few steps back. Her eyes gradually turned sharp. Her fingers moved. A fiery red feather fan appeared in her palm. Profound energy was injected into the fan, and at this moment, a bewitching red glow appeared, burning brightly. Gotcha! A few crisp sounds were heard as the iron chains were cut off and fell onto the ground. The two Bu elders' bodies immediately sank. Yiqing Luo supported them with each hand, letting them lean against the wooden pillar, sitting down to rest. After rescuing the two Bu elders from the iron chain, Yiqing Luo's gaze turned towards the surroundings, surveying the surroundings. "I'll bring you out of the Miao tribe first, we'll talk about the rest after we get out." As soon as she finished speaking, his gaze was fixed on a certain spot. His expression changed drastically. "Third Elder Miao, how dare you scheme against me?" Yiqing Luo's expression congealed as a pair of sharp charming eyes, like a sharp icicle, pierced directly towards Third Elder Miao, as she spat out a sentence while clenching her teeth. Her reaction could be considered very fast. The moment he sensed that something was wrong, he immediately bent down and hugged the two Bu family's elders. Then, with a single step, he flew towards Third Elder Miao. However, just at the moment when Yiqing Luo leapt up, a loud bang shook the entire Hmong stockade village 3 times. Dong! Then, a huge iron cage came crashing down. If Yiqing Luo was alone, escaping from this iron cage was definitely not a problem. But, in Yiqing Luo's hands, there were 2 old men who were obviously exhausted. The moment the iron cage came crashing down, Yiqing Luo knew that her discovery was too late. She decisively gave up on the idea of escaping with the Bu family's 2 elders. Just at the moment when the iron cage came crashing down on their heads, she had already brought the 2 Bu elders back to the side of the wooden pillar. Chapter 2468. The iron cage that flickered with a cold light trapped the 3 of them inside. Young lady. The 2 Bu family elders were so shocked by the sudden turn of events that they couldn't recover from their shock. They stared blankly at the iron cage and stammered, "This. What is going on? Why is there an iron cage?" Grandma Boo's eyes widened in astonishment. She looked at the iron cage. Then she looked at Yi Qing Luo's gloomy expression. Tears welled up in her eyes. Young lady. We've let you down. We've caused you to be trapped in the Miao tribe. It's all right. Yi Qing Luo turned back to look at the two Bu elders and the expression on her face became gentler. Just treat it as me asking you to rest more. After you've rested enough and recovered your energy, we'll leave. Ha 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 ha. A sudden ear-piercing laughter was heard from outside the iron cage. Third Elder Miao placed both his hands behind his back, totally different from the yes man in front of Yi Qing Luo earlier, trapped in the Miao stockade cave and you still want to leave. Ha ha ha. Seeing that you're so ignorant, this elder shall be merciful and tell you. The Miao stockade cave is not a place where you outsiders can come and go as you please. Third Elder Miao walked slowly to the iron cage with a complacent smile on his face. When the two Bu elders heard that, their bodies trembled violently as their faces were filled with guilt. Yi Qing Luo didn't even raise her head as she half squatted in front of the two Bu elders and took their pulse while sneering, Third Elder Miao, don't be too confident. If I want to leave, can you stop me? Third Elder Miao couldn't help but burst out laughing. Why don't you leave for this elder to see? Ha ha ha. As long as I hand you over to the clan leader, this elder will definitely be able to get rid of the mess in the Bu family village and obtain a respectable status. As though he was thinking of his future. Third Elder Miao's laughter became increasingly carefree and complacent. Yi Qing Luo turned a deaf ear to it. There wasn't a single trace of panic on her face. Only between his brows, there was a hint of coldness. After confirming that the two Bu elders had not suffered any serious injuries, Yi Qing Luo heaved a sigh of relief and fed both of them another elemental energy pill as she comforted them warmly. Grandpa Bu, Grandma Bu, rest here and recover your energy. In a while, I'll bring you out. Young lady. Granny Bu held Yi Qing Luo's hand tightly. Yi Qing Luo smiled sweetly, don't worry. After she finished speaking, she slowly stood up and faced Third Elder Miao. In that instant, the expression on her face became extremely domineering. From head to toe, he released an aura that looked down on everything. Third Elder Miao's maniacal laughter was abruptly stopped by Yi Qing Luo's imposing manner. Yi Qing Luo's eyes were calm as she fixed her gaze on him. Chapter 2470. Third Elder, I heard that. You've already caught the person who trespassed into Miao tribe. A deep voice was heard coming from the entrance of the dungeon. Immediately following that, a middle-aged man walked over. That man's imposing manner was unleashed, carrying a trace of sharpness. When that man walked nearer to Third Elder Miao, Third Elder Miao's face turned as white as a piece of white paper. His entire body started to tremble violently. He plopped onto the ground as he stammered, Patriarch, Patriarch. The person who came was the Miao tribe's patriarch, Miao Yixiong. Miao Yixiong was all smiles. Third Elder need not be so courteous. Third Elder Miao stood up apprehensively. He paid attention to Miao Yixiong's expression as he tried his best to calm his emotions. Looking at the patriarch's expression, he probably hadn't heard what he said about releasing Yi Luo. He couldn't afford to be flustered. Today, the patriarch had already seen Yi Luo locked up in the Miao tribe's dungeon. He had no other choice. No matter if he was poisoned by Yi Qing Luo, he had to stand on the Miao tribe's side. Patriarch, this is the person who trespassed into Miao tribe, trying to save the two old fellows in the Bu family village. After he had made up his mind, Third Elder Miao decisively pointed at Yi Qing Luo. Miao Yixiong narrowed his eyes. He placed his hands behind his back as he walked nearer to the iron cage. When his gaze met the young lady's face, his expression suddenly congealed. Yi Luo. Yi Qing Luo lazily raised her eyelids as she squinted at Miao Yixiong, smiling as she spoke, Miao tribe leader, long time no see. Not long. Not long. These words were said with clenched teeth, as though he was suppressing his anger. Third Elder Miao saw that the atmosphere between the two of them was not right, and realized that there was a grudge between the patriarch and Yi Luo. And it wasn't a small grudge. Third Elder Miao stood on the patriarch's side even more firmly. Patriarch, the last time I lost in the Bu family village, it was because she blocked and protected the village. This time, she ran over to the Miao tribe to save these two people. This person must have a close relationship with the Bu family village, and there's a possibility that traitor's disappearance is related to her. No. We don't know anything about traitors. This is only the second time we've met this young lady. She was just being kind. She just couldn't bear to see us two old people get hurt. Let her go, let her go. Granny Bu struggled to stand up. Her wrinkled face was filled with tears. I've kowtowed to you. I'll answer whatever you want to ask. Let this little girl go. Then, Granny Bu's tottering body propped itself up, wanting to kneel. Yiqing Luo raised her hand and stopped her. He won't dare to do anything to us. You stay here and rest well. Ha! Miao Yixiong sneered, his eyes filled with disdain. Chapter 2471. Yiqing Luo didn't even lift her eyelids, speaking of eldest young Miss Miao. Miao Patriarch, the bottle of medicinal pills that eldest young Miss Miao snatched from me was something that I spent an entire month to refine, spending a huge amount of money to gather all the medicinal herbs. She paused as her lips curled into a mocking smile. I should settle this score with the Miao Patriarch. You poisoned Rongrong and still dare to ask me to settle this score for you. Miao Yixiong laughed in anger. Young lady, this is the Miao tribe and you're so arrogant in my territory. Aren't you afraid that you won't be able to leave this place alive? Yiqing Luo finally raised her head. Her long and narrow eyes rose slightly as she shrugged her shoulders indifferently. It doesn't matter if I can leave the Miao tribe alive, but whether eldest Miss Miao can stay alive. Yi Luo. Miao Yixiong's imposing manner exploded, fierce and sharp, refusing a toast only to drink a forfeit. His 5 fingers moved. A burst of dense, profound energy burst forth from his palm. Yiqing Luo felt the ground shaking. Behind her, the two Bu elders' panicked cries could be heard. Yiqing Luo turned around and saw the wooden stake that the two Bu elders were sitting on suddenly rose up slowly. Sharp arrows flew out from all directions of the iron cage, heading straight for the two old men on the wooden stakes. Yiqing Luo's eyes turned cold. Her feet tapped lightly and her body leaped up agilely. The glower flame fan in her hand suddenly opened up and slashed out a burst of dense profound qi. Bam! The whirlwind created by the Xian qi knocked away all the sharp arrows. Yiqing Luo's other hand immediately pulled the two Bu elders down from the wooden stake. Immediately, the 3 of them landed steadily on the ground. Looking at the 2 old men who were still in a state of shock, Yiqing Luo's face revealed a trace of anger. Her eyes were cold as her lips curled into a cold arc. Miao Patriarch. You will pay the price for what you did earlier. Miao Yixiong totally disregarded Yiqing Luo's words. His gaze was sinister and malicious. Just based on the fact that you're trapped in my iron cage, with 2 burdens, you want me to pay the price? Really? Yiqing Luo's lips curled into a devilish smile. At the same time, he spat out these 2 words lightly. A gush of horrifying power encircled Yiqing Luo's surroundings, enveloping that young lady dressed in a long red dress, who was like a raging flame, tightly. The entire dungeon shook violently, causing the earth to quake and the mountains to sway. He could vaguely hear the sound of something falling to the ground. The smile on Miao Yixiong's face gradually froze. Yiqing Luo let go of the 2 Bu elders and lowered her voice. Stand further away, we will be able to leave soon. Yiqing Luo intentionally set up a simple enchantment around the 2 Bu family elders. Chapter 2472. The ground was filled with dust and the iron bars were sent flying. Yiqing Luo lightly clapped her hands as her long and narrow eyes rose into a faint but cold arc. Now, Miao clan leader, how else do you think you can trap me? Miao Yixiong's malicious eyes stared fiercely at Yiqing Luo. His hands clenched into fists as his profound qi revolved around his body. Yiqing Luo's action of shattering the iron cage. It really gave him a huge shock. Although he knew in his heart that Yiqing Luo's ability was very strong. But he had never thought that Yiqing Luo's ability was actually above his. This young lady, was she really like what she looked like on the surface, just a 15-year-old young lady? What was her identity? Why did she go against the Miao clan time and time again? Miao Yixiong's gaze turned increasingly cold. In my Miao clan's territory, you think I can't trap you? He laughed coldly a few times. His sinister gaze slowly fell onto the two Bu elders behind Yiqing Luo. His smile became even colder. The Miao clan is not a place where you can come and go as you wish. Moreover, with those two burdens around, you can forget about leaving the Miao clan. The two Bu elders shivered. Then, bring it on, we can try. See if I have the ability to bring Grandpa Bu and Grandma Bu away from the Miao clan. Towards Miao Yixiong's threat. Yiqing Luo was totally unmoved as she met Miao Yixiong's gaze calmly, as her lips twitched in ridicule. Miao Yixiong's gaze turned colder. You won't give up until all hope is gone. I'd like to see how arrogant you can be. His words had just ended when Miao Yixiong took a few steps back. Then he called out loudly, Lord Yu, I'll have to trouble you. Lord Yu. Yiqing Luo's eyes flashed. In her mind, a figure suddenly flashed past. The next moment, she saw a tall man, appearing in the dungeon. That man overlapped with the figure which flashed past Yiqing Luo's mind. Yiqing Luo's pupils suddenly contracted as shock flashed past her eyes. Yu Ji. The man in front of her, wasn't he? Lan Ling Nuo's personal guard. She had once crossed hands with him at the Peach Blossom restaurant, and she was still not his match. That man called Yu Ji. Why would he appear in the Miao tribe? Ha ha ha. You didn't expect this, did you? Miao Yixiong looked at Yiqing Luo's astonished expression and burst into laughter. Young lady, do you really think that your ability is so strong that no one in the world can match you? Arrogance and confidence depend on the situation and the person. Miao Yixiong's laughter was filled with smugness and coldness. He felt a sense of exhilaration. He was the leader of the Miao tribe. But in the hands of a 15-year-old girl, he had repeatedly suffered losses. Now, he could finally suppress this little girl's arrogance. He would find Yu Ji. Invite Yu Ji to the Miao tribe. It was to deal with Yiqing Luo. He learned from Miao Rongrong. Chapter 2473. Of course, who exactly was Yu Ji? Miao Yixiong did not mind. He only cared about whether Yu Ji could get the antidote out of Yi Luo. Nothing else mattered to him. However, there was one thing that puzzled Miao Yixiong. When he sincerely invited Yu Ji to come to the Miao tribe to help him solve his biggest problem, Yu Ji didn't even finish his words before directly rejecting him. But after that, when he and Lan Ling Nuo talked and mentioned the name Yi Luo, Yu Ji actually changed his attitude and agreed to it immediately. Then, she followed him to the Miao tribe. Miao Yixiong had originally planned to bring Yu Ji to Yi Luo. If Yi Luo didn't listen to her, then, let Yu Ji force Yi Luo to hand over the antidote. Who would have thought that Yi Luo would come to the Miao tribe alone for the sake of the two elders of the Bu family village? Coincidentally, Yu Ji was in the Miao tribe. This time, it could be said that Yi Luo had fallen into the tiger's den. Miao Yixiong recalled the scene of Yi Luo being tortured by Yu Ji, the scene of Yi Luo handing over the antidote and begging for mercy. The smile on Miao Yixiong's face grew even more smug. Little girl, you're not Lord Nethery's match. You'd better surrender obediently. Standing behind Yu Ji, Miao Yixiong was full of confidence. Actually, I'm not an unreasonable person. As long as you give me the antidote obediently and help Rongrong vent her anger, I'll naturally let you leave the Miao tribe. Yiqing Luo rolled her eyes with a look of disdain. Such a person, with such a face, was actually the patriarch of the Miaogu clan. Is there no one left in the Miao tribe? Letting such a brainless person become the clan leader. Aren't you afraid that the 100 years of prestige of the Miaogu clan will be destroyed? He was a dignified clan leader, a 45 to 54-year-old middle-aged man. He hid behind a young man. Furthermore, he was acting so arrogantly, using the young man as a stepping stone to criticize others. Why did Yiqing Luo feel that this clan leader was so childish that it made one laugh? Seeing that Yiqing Luo wasn't like what he had imagined, begging bitterly, instead she looked at him and smiled. Miao Yixiong's expression turned cold, and his eyes instantly became sharp. Just as Miao Yixiong was about to continue speaking, the young girl smiled sweetly, her eyes sparkling with a dreamy light. A sweet voice spilled out from the girl's pink lips. Chief's suggestion is not bad. Miao Yixiong's words were stuck in his throat. He opened his mouth but didn't know what to say. He felt an indescribable strange feeling. Yi Luo's smile, his tone. No matter how he looked at it, it didn't sound like he was agreeing with him. However, he couldn't tell what was strange about it. However, when he saw Yu Ji standing in front of him with a cold aura around him, he felt a chill run down his spine. Chapter 2474. The more Miao Yixiong thought, the more flustered he became. Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes as she saw through Miao Yixiong's thoughts. She scoffed and looked away in disdain. Yu Ji's expression was indifferent. He had been watching their battle in silence, and there was no trace of anxiety on his face. When Yiqing Luo's gaze fell onto him, only then would there be a hint of arrogance between his brows. As though she looked down on Yiqing Luo from the start. To Yu Ji. The young girl in front of him was indeed not worthy of his attention. Secluded solitude, Yiqing Luo calmly called out Yu Ji's name. You're here, is because of me. Yu Ji frowned. Yes. Who is your master? Hearing Yu Ji's reply, Yiqing Luo was almost certain that this Yu Ji obviously knew her real identity under her disguise. Yu Ji would become Lan Ling Nuo's guard and come to the Northern Wave continent. It was probably because of her. These people with the surname Serenity, which plane of power did they belong to outside the Nirvana realm? Also, behind them, that venerable one. Who exactly was he? Why did he target her so many times? When you die, Yama will naturally tell you. Yu Ji sneered. Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased slightly. I know what I'm doing even if you don't answer. Yu Ji's eyes flickered. Everyone says that you are eloquent and know how to use pretense to win people's hearts. It seems that it is indeed so. Is Yuhan talking about Yunu or Yunu? Yiqing Luo didn't beat around the bush with him as her lips curled into a sneer. To be able to conquer people's hearts, it means that you have ulterior motives and you have something that I can use against you. Her smile gradually curved her eyes, but her expression was still extremely cold. Yu Ji glanced at Miao Yixiong, who was rooted to the ground as if he had been petrified. There was obvious disgust in his eyes. Following that, he looked towards Yiqing Luo and spoke out impatiently, give him the antidote. You want the antidote? Yiqing Luo raised her brows and put on a smiling look. Yu Ji frowned. What? Do you want me to use force? But, even if you use force, you won't be able to get the things in my profound phoenix ring. Yiqing Luo's curved eyebrows blinked as she smiled in an infuriating manner. The profound phoenix ring was different from an ordinary interspatial ring. If it turned into an ordinary spatial ring, he wanted to take over the things inside the spatial ring. As long as he defeated his opponent and dug out his opponent's profound heart jade, he could use the power of the profound heart jade to open the spatial ring. However, the netherworld phoenix ring could only be opened by its owner. Yuji's eyes were cold and gloomy as it swept past the red jade ring on Yiqing Luo's fingertip. He suddenly flipped his palm, and a thick and strange black power rolled in his palm. Chapter 2475. Yuji's attention was all on Yiqing Luo's direction. He did not notice Miao Yixiong's crazy behavior. In a moment of carelessness, his arm was scratched by Miao Yixiong. Yuji's face darkened as he shook off Miao Yixiong. However, Miao Yixiong's emotions were no longer stable. He held on to Yuji tightly. Sharp nails pierced Yuji's skin. His eyes were bloodshot as he glared at Yuji fiercely. "You promised to get the antidote for me. How dare you go back on your word? How dare you violate our cooperation?" Yi Luo was dead. No one could cure the poison in Miao Rongrong's body. There was only 1.5 months left until the saintess selection. Miao Rongrong could not become the saintess. The other clans would then take advantage of the situation to rise. His position as patriarch, "I can't sit still." There was nothing left. Miao Yixiong was filled with hatred towards Yuji. If it wasn't for Yuji's arrogance, he also wouldn't take advantage of Yuji's presence to mock Yi Luo repeatedly. Didn't Yi Luo want money? If it could be solved with money, then it wouldn't be a problem at all. At the very least, Rongrong could become the saintess. At the very least, he could keep his position as the patriarch. At that time, how much money would he have? The more Miao Yixiong thought about it, the more he wanted to strangle Yuji. But Miao Yixiong had never thought about it. The person who invited Yuji over from Lonling Nuo was himself. Even though he knew that Yuji's target was Yiqing Luo, he still chose to believe in her without any hesitation, which was himself. Relying on the momentum of secluded silence who had once defeated Yiqing Luo, the one who was arrogant was still himself. What right did he have to blame others? However, Miao Yixiong would probably never understand. Yuji was annoyed by Miao Yixiong's craziness. He furrowed his brows and waved his sleeve. Miao Yixiong's body was sent flying by the strong wind released by Yuji. With an indifferent expression, Yuji turned around and walked towards the exit of the dungeon. Miao Yixiong fell to the ground and spat out a mouthful of blood. However, he grinned and laughed loudly. "Yuji, why don't you leave? I've already planted the heart-devouring parasite in your body. Ha ha ha. As long as you leave a distance of 6 feet from me, the heart-devouring parasite in your body will eat you bit by bit, until all that's left of you is a skeleton." Yuji's figure paused, and his face was covered with a thin layer of coldness. "How dare you?" Miao Yixiong said fearlessly, "I just want Rongrong's antidote. Once I get it, I'll cure you. Otherwise, all of you will be buried with the Miao tribe." In any case, he would lose the position of the Miao tribe leader. It was as if he had lost everything. Yuji lowered his head and looked at the wound on his arm that was bleeding black blood. Chapter 2476. Yuji suppressed his anger at being tricked. He took quick steps towards Yiqing Luo's direction. The rubble around the dungeon was about to collapse. In the air waves were still swirling violently. Smoke and dust covered everything in front of him, making it blurry. He could vaguely see that there seemed to be 3 people lying on the ground. He didn't think about anything else and directly walked in the direction of the figure. In Yuji's knowledge, he was the strongest person in the Nirvana realm. Even if Yiqing Luo wanted to play any tricks, none of them had any effect on him. Moreover, he had absolute confidence in himself. That strike just now. Even if Yiqing Luo wasn't dead, He only had one last breath left. Yuji walked closer. The figure on the ground was dressed in red. She was lying on the ground with her face facing the ground. Her messy black hair covered half of her face. Apparently, it was no doubt Yiqing Luo. Secluded silence half squatted down, his sword-like eyebrows furrowing slightly. On Yiqing Luo's body, there was a lady's delicate fragrance. It smelled much better than the artificial flowery fragrance on dark girl's body. Hey! Yuji reached out and gently pushed the figure lying on the ground. But the feeling of his palm touching her was not that of a young girl's soft body. Instead, it felt extremely solid. Yuji's eyes slightly widened as he suddenly realized something. He stood up abruptly and quickly tried to retreat. But just as he stood up, his vision was filled with dizziness. His body swayed and he fell heavily to the ground. Secluded solitude. Miao Yixiong was confused when he saw Yuji suddenly fall to the ground. He propped up his body that was injured by Yuji and walked over shakily. Don't come over. Yuji gritted his teeth and growled. His voice was hoarse and devoid of strength. Miao Yixiong's face stiffened and he stopped in his tracks. From this angle, he just happened to be able to see the young girl in red lying on the ground in front of Yuji, and she seemed to be dead and didn't move at all. Yi Luo's corpse. However, if it was Yi Luo's corpse, how did Yuji suddenly become like this? Yuji was an expert who could easily defeat Yi Luo. Miao Yixiong was puzzled and looked again. Only then did he realize that the person wrapped in the red clothes was not a young girl, but a piece of steel. He then looked at the two faintly discernible figures not far behind him. There was no need to guess. It was definitely the broken steel of the iron cage. This realization caused Miao Yixiong's eyes to gradually light up. This meant that Yi Luo was not dead. Since Yi Luo was still alive, Rongrong's poison could be neutralized. Yiqing Luo led the Bu family's two elders, as they carefully sneaked around the dimly lit Miao Stockade village. Fortunately, the Miao Stockade village cave was a forbidden area for the Miao tribe. Apart from the entrance and certain places within the Miao Stockade village's cave that were guarded by guards, other than the entrance and certain places within the Miao Stockade village's cave, there were no other patrolling guards. The three of them did not run into anyone along the way. But what gave Yiqing Luo a headache was, Peach did not have a map of the Hmong Stockade village. After all, it was the forbidden land of the Miao tribe. No matter how powerful Peach was, she couldn't get the map of the forbidden area. Previously, when she followed Third Elder Miao into the Miao Stockade village cave, the totem on the wall had a huge impact on her. As a result, she had no way of memorizing the route. She could only follow the feeling in her memory and led the Bu family's two elders away. Young lady. Chapter 2477. Elder T was panting heavily as his face turned pale. That's right, young lady, leave on your own. You will definitely be able to leave the Miao tribe. Let's leave together. Yiqing Luo interrupted their persuasion without hesitation. Don't you believe in my ability? I know you're very powerful. But no matter how powerful you are alone, 2 fists are no match for 4 hands. Elder T's face was filled with sweat from nervousness and running. His moist eyes were filled with emotion. Little girl, it's enough that you've done so much for us 2 old fellows who don't even know each other. We know that you have a kind heart, but we shouldn't have harmed you just to survive. From the moment you chose to believe me in the Bu family village, we are no longer strangers. Yiqing Luo lowered her voice and said gently, in the Bu family village, you believed me once. Believe me again today, I will definitely bring you away. Yi is still waiting for you. Yi. Grandma Bu's voice choked as she called out this name. Tears rolled down from her eyes. We are ordinary people, following you will only implicate you. Elder T hugged his old wife tightly. Me and this old wife have lived for more than half a year. Even if we die here, it doesn't matter. Before I die, I'm already satisfied that I can wait for this old wife. I won't leave you alone. If you don't want to implicate me, then listen to me. Yi Qing Luo held on to each of them and used her own strength to support the two old men. Go. If it was somewhere else, Yi Qing Luo would definitely let Shi Ju out and carry the two old men away. But in the Miao village cave, it was strange and eerie. That pair of jade eyes, the big bloody mouth, the roar of a wild beast. All of these were deeply imprinted in Yi Qing Luo's mind. She couldn't summon teas and was worried that Shi Ju would be affected by that pair of jade eyes. Especially, summoning Shi Ju would expose their whereabouts. Yi Qing Luo could only use her own strength to support the two old men as they left. Not even a few steps away. Yi Qing Luo's ears twitched. Following that, her eyes congealed slightly. Someone was approaching. Did Yu Ji discover that she had made use of steel to create the illusion of their corpses? Then used the blink movement secret art to escape the dungeon. She purposely poisoned her robe. Once Yu Ji got close, the fragrance from the robe would seep into his skin. Yu Ji will definitely be poisoned. It was impossible for him to catch up to them so quickly. However, the aura behind him was getting closer and closer. Yi Qing Luo didn't have any other choice as her gaze swiftly surveyed the surroundings and directly headed towards the nearest corner in a flash. She brought the two elders of the Bu family and hid in a dark corner. The sound of a group of orderly footsteps could be heard. Yi Qing Luo sneaked a glance from the corner of her eyes. Chapter 2478. Behind Yi Qing Luo was originally a wall. Even if he fell, he would only fall to the ground. But Yi Qing Luo only felt that her body was empty. Then, his body began to fall rapidly. Yi Qing Luo's reaction was swift as she grabbed Grandma Bu's hand tightly. Granny Bu held Elder T's hand tightly. The three of them descended at an extremely fast speed. Yi Qing Luo was adjusting her breathing and releasing her profound energy while sensing the surrounding atmosphere, making preparations to descend any time. The more he fell, the more Yi Qing Luo thought about it, the more astonished she became. This hole was at least 1,000 meters wide. How could there be such a deep cave under the monk stockade village? They continued to fall for a while. Yi Qing Luo was keenly aware of the changes in the airflow. She immediately released her profound energy to slow down the speed of their descent. Then, he summoned Shi Ju. Shi Ju's massive body caught the three of them firmly. Very soon, Shi Ju landed on the ground. It was pitch black all around. The two elders of the Bu family simply couldn't see what was underneath. They were still in a state of shock, their bodies trembling as they constantly groped for the things beneath them. He only felt a ball of soft fur. Everything's fine now. Yi Qing Luo gently held the two elderly's hands and comforted them softly. The darkness did not hinder her at all. Yi Qing Luo could see her surroundings clearly. This was an oval-shaped cave. There was nothing inside, and it was completely empty. She jumped down from Shi Ju's body and took out a luminous pearl. The cave was not spacious. A luminous pearl was enough to illuminate the surroundings. When the light returned to their eyes, when the two Bu family elders saw the thing they were sitting on, it was a huge black leopard, and they almost fainted from fright. Luckily Elder T's reaction was fast. Seeing Shi Ju's huge head rubbing against Yi Qing Luo's arm bit by bit, he heaved a sigh of relief and pulled the old woman into his arms to pacify her. Old woman is all right. This is a pet raised by a young lady. It's all right, it's all right. The relationship between an old couple was as beautiful as their first love. Just rest on Shi Ju's back for a while. She's a battle-type war pet and can protect you, don't be afraid. Yiqing Luo patted Shiju's head gently and immediately walked away. Shiju took small steps as it followed behind Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo took a look at the surroundings. There were no traces of any mechanism in the surroundings. Could it be that this place was really just a cave? Were they going to die in this cave? Yiqing Luo calculated in her mind the distance from the top to here. The idea of using profound energy or relying on Shiju to fly up. It was obviously impossible. They would definitely fall midway due to exhaustion. Young lady, you. Are you looking for an exit? Chapter 2479. There was indeed something strange about the ground. I'll hold this pearl for you. Elder T saw Yiqing Luo's solemn expression and wanted to do something for her. Yiqing Luo didn't refuse and placed the luminous pearl in Elder T's hand. Elder T held the luminous pearl and stood by Yiqing Luo's side, trying his best to make the luminous pearls light so that Yiqing Luo could see the ground more clearly. With one hand free, Yiqing Luo began to use both hands to feel the concave feeling of the ground. Her fingertips brushed past and her mind followed this outline, slowly forming a picture in her mind. This concave outline was very big. It occupied at least 1/3 of the cave's terrain. Such a big outline. She had just run several laps in this cave and actually didn't find this outline. Yiqing Luo secretly ridiculed herself in her heart. When did she become so careless? After describing it bit by bit, the outline that her palm touched gradually formed in her mind. It was an extremely huge beast. Yiqing Luo hadn't been able to figure out the specific shape. But Yiqing Luo could be sure that this was a beast whose size was at least bigger than Shiju, Qi, or Qi Yen. But she couldn't be sure. Was it the carvings on the ground that carved this beast into such a huge one, perhaps to figure out the overall shape of this beast? Then she could leave this cave. Yiqing Luo's eyes lit up slightly, her hands that were exploring also sped up and began to explore the interior of the beast. This was the head, eyes, nose, mouth. Yiqing Luo touched down bit by bit, while forming the shape of the beast's head in her mind. Her fingers suddenly touched a sharp place. A sharp pain came. She trembled slightly and quickly retracted her hand. A hole was cut on her fingertip. Fresh blood gushed out. She looked down and looked at the place where her hand was cut. It was the beast's totem's teeth. The sharp teeth were still stained with her blood. That drop of bright red blood made this carved beast seem to add a bit of vitality. This thought made Yiqing Luo's heart suddenly tightened. In a trance, she once again saw that pair of green eyes. The bloody mouth that was stained with blood let out a low roar. The eyes of the totem imprinted on the ground flickered with a faint green color. Little girl, suddenly, he heard Elder T's urgent call. Then, his body shook violently. Yiqing Luo opened her eyes with heavy eyelids. She then met Elder T's worried eyes. Little girl, what's wrong? Are you okay? Yiqing Luo's breathing gradually calmed down. His eyes gradually regained their clarity. What happened to me? Yiqing Luo blinked her eyes as she recalled that pair of jade green eyes which she had faintly seen earlier, and her heart constricted tightly. You just... Elder T hesitated, as if he was choosing his words carefully. You look like you were possessed. You stared at the ground and looked like you were in a trance. You didn't seem to hear me when I talked to you. It was the same thing again. Earlier, when he had followed Third Elder Miao to the dungeon, he had encountered such a situation. When Yiqing Luo saw that pair of jade green eyes on the surrounding walls, it had happened before. Now, it was that pair of green eyes again. It was a bloody mouth. It was a wild beast's roar. What on earth was going on? Chapter 2480. Why did the Miao tribe treat the cave as a forbidden place? especially the totem on the wall. She couldn't even mention it. Third Elder Miao's fear towards the cave, Yiqing Luo could feel it clearly. So, this totem, this beast, what did it represent to the Miao tribe? What secret was it hiding? If she could figure this out, not only could she leave this god-forsaken place, moreover, she could coerce the Miao tribe to follow her to the East Continent to help Long Yunzhan suppress the poison. Yiqing Luo took a deep breath, suppressing the messy thoughts in her mind. She smiled at Elder T and shook her head. I'm fine, just a little tired from staring at this totem, so I took a rest. I have some clues now. After confirming that Yiqing Luo was fine, Elder T was relieved. Yiqing Luo placed all her attention on the totem on the ground. Her palm followed the internal contour of the beast, confirming the body structure of the beast bit by bit. Perhaps she was highly focused. She didn't see it. The drop of blood on the totem's tooth was disappearing bit by bit. At the same time, the totem's protruding eyes. Bit by bit, it shone with a faint jade luster. Under the dazzling luminous pearl. Extremely weak. Yi Luo. How dare you trespass the Miao tribe's forbidden area? Suddenly, a deep and resounding roar resounded from within the cave. The young lady who was groping the totem on the ground frowned slightly when she heard the voice. It's coming. It's coming. Elder T's hand which was holding the luminous pearl trembled. Yiqing Luo raised her head and saw that there wasn't any mechanism at all. On the wall of the deep and long underground cave, a huge worm-shaped hole which was about the size of an adult man's body was reflected in her eyes. It was said to be a worm-shaped hole. It was indeed a giant worm. Its body was a giant hole. But the antennae on its head and the thin black legs were still swaying randomly. A figure walked out from the body of the giant worm. It was the Miao tribe leader, Miao Yixiong. Miao Yixiong's gaze fell on Yiqing Luo. When he saw that Yiqing Luo was still alive, his eyes were burning with passion. Yi Luo, it's really you. This forbidden land of the Miao tribe was a taboo that the Miao tribe had guarded for hundreds of years. Once someone approached the forbidden area, they would be killed. Miao Yixiong could use the goo worms left there to sense the aura changes in the forbidden area. Yi Luo was the only one who trespassed into the Miao tribe. Therefore, when it sensed that there was a human aura in the forbidden land, it immediately went into hiding. Miao Yixiong did not hesitate and directly used the Miao tribe's most taxing and most harmful teleportation goo worm to teleport to the forbidden area. As expected, it was Yi Luo. She was alive. Still alive. The expression on Miao Yixiong's face was gradually tainted with madness and joy. Chapter 2481. Yiqing Luo, was there something wrong with him? Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased as she looked at him impatiently. Miao clan leader, how big of a face do you have? After finding someone to kill me, you still tried in vain to buy the antidote from me. As she spoke, the disdain and mockery in her eyes deepened. If it was before, I would have been quite willing to make this deal with you. However, I'm not in a good mood right now, so there's no room for discussion. You. Miao Yixiong trembled with anger. But when he thought of the poison in Miao Rongrong's body, he could only suppress his anger. After the earlier scene where Yiqing Luo almost died in Yu Ji's hands, Miao Yixiong was now a little paranoid. He absolutely could not let Yiqing Luo die. He absolutely had to make Yiqing Luo hand over the antidote. Yi Luo, Yu Ji has already been poisoned. I can hand him over to you and you can deal with him as you wish. Miao Yixiong suddenly recalled the grudge between Yu Ji and Yiqing Luo. Do you think you can control him? Yiqing Luo looked at Miao Yixiong in amusement, unable to imagine how this Miao tribe's leader could be so naive. Miao Yixiong knew how strong Yu Ji was. That was why he specially invited Yu to deal with her. Now that he felt that Yu was poisoned, he wanted to decide whether Yu would live or die. Miao Yixiong's eyes turned cold. He clenched his fists and said, "He's been poisoned by my heart-devouring parasite. As long as he's 10 feet away from me, he'll be devoured from the inside out." Yiqing Luo raised her brows. This Miao Yixiong still had some brains at the crucial moment. He knew how to use gu poison to threaten secluded silence. Yiqing Luo suddenly thought of something as her lips curled into a smile which didn't look like a smile. "Tenjiang," she chuckled. "This cave seems to be more than 10 feet away from the surface." Miao Yixiong's face turned pale. "That is to say, Yuji's internal organs have already been devoured by the heart-devouring worm. Coupled with the corrosion of the poison, TSK. Yiqing Luo continued as she shook her head, "He's already dead, how are you going to hand him over to me?" Miao Yixiong's face alternated between green and white. His body stiffened and trembled slightly. The veins on his forehead bulged one by one. It was obvious that he was furious. Yiqing Luo leisurely stood up, as her hand gently caressed Shiju's head. Her long and narrow eyes were slightly curved. He had a leisurely look on his face. It was as if the person trapped in the Miao tribe and unable to leave was not her at all. Miao Yixiong restrained his emotions. His chest heaved up and down. For the future. For the future. He needed Yi Luo's help. He had only been humiliated by Yi Luo. Once he got his hands on the antidote, he could torture Yi Luo however he wanted. Just as he was thinking of softening his tone and discussing the conditions with Yiqing Luo, Miao Yixiong's eyes widened unconsciously. He froze on the spot. He stared foolishly at Yiqing Luo's back without blinking. His face was filled with astonishment and disbelief. Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased slightly as she carefully turned her head and looked behind her. A wave of jade-green light covered the sky and covered the earth. In an instant, it covered her eyes. She felt a stinging pain in her eyes, and her body swayed for a moment. She couldn't help but close her eyes and raise her hand to block the intense green brilliance from hurting her eyes. Yiqing Luo didn't see. The place where she was standing was right under her feet, in the center of the totem. Rays of jade-green light followed the outline of the totem, as it continued to extend. Chapter 2482. This scene was clearly reflected in Miao Yixiong's eyes. He was frightened. He staggered backwards, not daring to touch that little bit of jade-green light. Seal. The seal has been unlocked. The seal that had been sealed for 700 years has been unlocked. His voice was hoarse and filled with fear. Yiqing Luo was shrouded in the jade-green light, but she didn't feel anything special. Only her eyes were pierced by the light and could only open a slit. What entered her eyes was still jade-green. She couldn't see anything else. However, since Miao Yixiong was not far away, she could still hear the words he shouted clearly. Seal. What did Miao Yixiong mean by seal? Was this piece of jade-green light the so-called seal? What was sealed in this cave? Gradually, the surrounding light finally dissipated. Her vision was soothed and Yiqing Luo slowly opened her eyes. When she saw the scene below her feet, even she was stunned. Only to see the totem outline under her feet was flashing, emitting jade-green light. The light wasn't strong. She hadn't had time to take a closer look at the totem carved on the ground. What kind of beast was it? Suddenly, there was a turbulence under her feet. Yiqing Luo's body was unstable as she swayed slightly. The totem under her feet actually tore open a crack from the center. The crack gradually widened. Yiqing Luo immediately leaped up. By the time she stood in a safe place, the crack on the ground had already split open by more than half. Under the crack, there was a piece of jade green light and nothing could be seen clearly. The crack was about half the size of the totem. The entire cave's turbulence stopped. The cave fell into a strange silence. Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes as she stared at the crack on the ground, trying to see clearly what was under the crack. But other than a piece of jade green, there was still a piece of jade green. Yi Luo. Stop. You stop. Suddenly, Miao Yixiong's anxious roar came from behind. That voice had a trace of panic. Yi Luo, this seal must not be unlocked. Once it is unlocked, the entire Nirvana realm will be affected. Yiqing Luo was about to ask what kind of seal it was when she heard that. Two cries of suppressed fear could be heard. Then came Miao Yixiong's furious roar, these two old farts are now in my hands. If you don't want them to die, stop. The two elders of the Bu family. Yiqing Luo's pupils contracted. Wasn't Shi Jue protecting the two elders of the Bu family? With Miao Yixiong's ability, it was impossible for him to take the two Bu elders away from Shi Ju. Yiqing Luo immediately turned around and looked towards Miao Yixiong's direction. He saw Miao Yixiong grabbing a man's neck with one hand, his expression sinister. Shi Ju, on the other hand, stood at the side, its black fur standing on end as it bared its teeth and blew at Miao Yixiong. Shi Jue. Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased even tighter. Chapter 2483. The Miao tribe's seal was released. That would definitely be disadvantageous to the young lady. A Miao tribe leader, plus the so-called seal. The two Bu elders were worried that the young lady couldn't handle it alone. So they thought of using this battle pet to help the young lady. Whoever knew, they ended up dragging the young lady down. To let the young lady be coerced by the Miao tribe leader because of them, it's all right. Yiqing Luo spoke softly as she comforted the two Bu elders, don't be afraid, he won't touch you. Whether he moves or not depends on your performance. Miao Yixiong finally had a hostage to restrain Yi Luo and heaved a sigh of relief. But at the same time, there were some doubts in his heart. Wasn't it said that Yi Luo was someone from another continent? Why was he so familiar with the Bu family village? Everyone could see that. Yiqing Luo was very concerned about the two Bu elders. She didn't even hesitate to enter the Miao tribe alone to save them. In his mind, he suddenly remembered what third elder Miao had said before. Yi Luo was most likely related to the missing Miao tribe trader in the Bu family village. This thought made Miao Yixiong's expression congeal. He raised his malicious eyes and looked at Yiqing Luo coldly, leave the seal and come over here. He paused and hurriedly shook his head, wait, don't come over. You. Stand over there. Miao Yixiong pointed to a place opposite him. Miao Yixiong knew that he wasn't Yi Luo's opponent. If Yi Luo went near him, there was a high possibility that he would save the hostage. This was his only bargaining chip now. Yiqing Luo didn't make any sarcastic remarks this time. Instead, she directly walked towards the direction that Miao Yixiong pointed. Seeing Yiqing Luo being so obedient, Miao Yixiong heaved a sigh of relief. Before he opened his mouth, he was interrupted by Yiqing Luo coldly, you want the antidote? Antidote, naturally. Miao Yixiong's words were swallowed back as he answered Yiqing Luo's question. But immediately, his expression suddenly turned gloomy, but... Young lady, the bargaining chip is in my hands now, so you should be the one begging me. If you want these two people to live, then listen to me obediently. Miao Yixiong's tone was extremely arrogant. As though he wanted to get back at Yiqing Luo for all the humiliation he had suffered previously. All right, go ahead. Yiqing Luo's lips curled upwards as she generously spread out her hands. She moved. Miao Yixiong cautiously grabbed the necks of the Bu family's elders and took a few steps back. You. Don't move. I won't move. Yi Qing Luo smiled even more indifferently. But the more she laughed, the more she laughed. In Miao Yixiong's eyes. The more he thought about it, the more uneasy he felt. Now you know how to be obedient. In order to suppress the strange feeling in his heart, Miao Yixiong focused his attention on Yi Qing Luo. This arrogant little girl was now so obedient. It was enough to prove that the two elders of the Bu family were very important to her. His eyes turned cold and suddenly he sneered, "Little girl, I am not a narrow-minded person. How about you, kneel down in front of me now and kowtow to me twice, then the matter of you poisoning Rong Rong, trespassing into the Miao tribe and even breaking the seal that the Miao tribe had guarded for 700 years, will be written off." No. No way. The two elders of the Bu family immediately stopped him when they heard that. How could they possibly let the young lady kneel down for them? Although they had not spent much time with the young lady. But they were clear. The young lady was an extremely confident person. It was absolutely impossible for her to lower her head to anyone. Such a proud and unyielding young lady. Chapter 2484. Most importantly. Even if Yi Qing Luo was willing, they weren't willing. Shut up. Miao Yixiong shouted coldly as his hands exerted more strength. Bulao Air coughed violently as both of their hands tried to break the fingers on their necks. Looking at the two of them who were like ants being pinched in her palms, struggling on their deathbed. Miao Yixiong finally had the pleasure of being able to hold his head high in the air. Thinking of how he had begged Yi Qing Luo several times to give him the antidote. Thinking of Yi Qing Luo's high and mighty attitude of not giving him any charity. Miao Yixiong's eyes were burning with excitement. Kneel down. Quickly kneel down. No. No. Ah. Before Elder T could finish his words, his neck was strangled by a force. He cried out miserably as his body stiffened and his struggling stopped as his eyelids started to roll. Yi Luo, if you don't kneel down, I will kill this old man and then this old woman. Miao Yixiong couldn't wait to see Yi Qing Luo being trampled under his feet. He was the dignified Miao clan leader. He had always been high up. How could he suffer a loss in the hands of a young lady time and time again? He wanted to destroy this humiliation. He was still the noble Miao clan leader. Yi Qing Luo's gaze was fixed on Elder T without blinking. Looking at Elder T's pale face and eyelids rolling outwards, as though he was on his last breath. Her gaze turned colder and colder. That gaze made Miao Yixiong's heart tremble for no reason. You! How dare you look at me with such a gaze? Miao Yixiong instinctively took a few steps back. You're not allowed to look. I order you to kneel on the ground and look at me pitifully while wagging your tail. He was shouting so fiercely. But his hands had subconsciously loosened the grip on the two old men. How would he dare to kill the two Bulao Air? This was his only bargaining chip. Why? Miao clan leader, you've captured 2 hostages and this is your only request. Yi Qing Luo finally opened her mouth. Her voice was cold and no one could tell the emotions in her words. Miao Yixiong clenched his teeth as he growled fiercely, right. This is my only request. Are you going to kneel or not? I won't kneel. Yi Qing Luo spat out 2 decisive words. Good, very good. You don't want to kneel. If you don't kneel, I'll kill him. Miao Yixiong's eyes were red with anger. He raised the arm that was strangling Elder T. He threatened, hoping to see a flustered expression on Yi Qing Luo's face. But, Yi Qing Luo's pink lips curled upwards as she smiled gently. Miao tribe leader, do you really dare to attack? Her smile was filled with disdain and ridicule. Her long and narrow eyes slowly turned contemptuous. As long as something happens to them, the next person to die will be you. Her voice was soft. It was a very unusual conversational tone. Every word was like a hammer to Miao Yixiong's heart. He was so terrified that even his pores were dilating and his body was trembling. Miao Yixiong knew this very well. Yi Luo was serious. She had the absolute strength and confidence to kill him. Moreover, if he was the slightest bit careless, there was a high possibility that Yi Luo could save the two Bulao heir from his hands. After thinking for a moment, Miao Yixiong's arrogance gradually dissipated. His two hands loosened from the two Bulao heirs' necks and grabbed their shoulders instead. Chapter 2485. Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes in interest. This Miao tribe leader was really rather adaptable to circumstances. He could be high and mighty in an instant. And he could be humble in an instant. Freely retreating and advancing. Suddenly, she understood the reason why he was able to sit on the position of tribe leader for such a long time. After all, if one was shameless, he would be invincible. Seeing Yiqing Luo staring at him with a smile which didn't look like a smile, Miao Yixiong felt goosebumps. He understood her emotions and moved her with reason. This is the Miao tribe's forbidden grounds, what you just opened is the seal that the Miao tribe had been guarding for 700 years. Luckily, this seal is not completely opened and there's still one last layer of seal left. If the last layer of seal is opened, not only the Miao tribe will be in danger, the entire Nirvana realm will be affected and affected. Both of us are injured, so there's no way you can leave this place. So now, I should have the conditions to discuss the deal with you. Yiqing Luo's slender brows rose as her gaze slowly fell onto that crack which had split open. What kind of seal is this? Yiqing Luo didn't answer Miao Yixiong's deal but asked the doubt in her heart. The Miao tribe's seal. Why would it have such a huge impact on her? Miao Yixiong frowned as he felt displeased, but he had no choice but to answer, I'm not too sure what it is exactly. This is the ancestral order passed down by our ancestors. Every generation of tribe leader has to do their best to protect this seal from being opened. Yiqing Luo nodded her head thoughtfully. Yi Luo, if you want to leave this forbidden grounds, only I can help you. So if you give me the antidote, I will let the three of you leave immediately and promise that I will not find any trouble with anyone in the Bu family village. Miao Yixiong saw that Yiqing Luo wasn't going to mention about the deal, so he might as well tell her his conditions directly. Why should I believe you? Yiqing Luo shrugged, you hate me and need the Bu family village's people to find the traitor. If I give you the antidote, will you really let the three of us leave? Miao Yixiong's eyes flashed as his expression gradually turned cold. You can only choose to believe me. He paused for a moment. The expression on his face gradually became ferocious, adding a hint of madness. Yi Luo, you should know that if Miao Rongrong dies, she won't be able to become the holy maiden, and I'll be ruined. Since I'm ruined, why don't we all die together? Yiqing Luo could tell that when Miao Yixiong said these words, his eyes were almost bloodshot red, filled with madness and a trace of chilliness. He was serious. If he destroys himself, in that case, he might as well destroy everything. Yiqing Luo scoffed in disdain. A selfish person like Miao Yixiong was truly cold-blooded and emotionless. He had asked her for the antidote time and time again. It was not for Miao Rongrong's life. It was because Miao Rongrong was about to become the holy maiden of the Miao tribe. If he was destroyed, might as well destroy everything and be buried with him. Little girl, now, you only have one choice. You can only choose to believe me. Miao Yixiong didn't care about what Yiqing Luo was thinking about him. You must know that your ability alone is strong, but with these two burdens dragging you down, don't even think of leaving the Miao tribe easily. Yiqing Luo's eyes flickered slightly. Her eyes were filled with a chilly intent. After some time, Her eyes swept past the two Bu family elders and immediately closed her eyes as she opened her mouth. Ah! Chapter 2486. Granny Bu's body smashed heavily into the stone wall beside her. The old lady's weak body was trembling in pain from this sudden fall. And the next moment, Elder T took this opportunity to shake off Miao Yixiong's arm and rushed to Grandma Bu's side. Grandpa Bu, Grandma Bu. Yiqing Luo's heart trembled. She didn't expect them to use such a method to escape from Miao Yixiong's restraint. She hurriedly looked at Shiju. Shiju understood, and its huge body flew towards the direction of the two Bu elders. Miao Yixiong was shocked. The two Bu elders were his only bargaining chips with Yiqing Luo. He absolutely could not let them return to Yiqing Luo's side. He didn't have a second chance to restrain Yiqing Luo. However, what no one had expected was, after the two Bu elders broke free from Miao Yixiong's restraint, they didn't escape towards Yiqing Luo's direction. Instead, they headed towards the crack which was emitting a faint green light not too far away. Yiqing Luo's pupils contracted as she suddenly realized something. Grandpa Bu, Grandma Bu, you. Don't do anything silly, I said I can bring you. Young lady. Elder T, who was standing in front of the crack, stopped in his tracks. That wrinkled face revealed a comfortable smile for the first time since today's thrilling journey. His hand and Grandma Bu's hand held tightly. Don't come over. He looked at Miao Yixiong without a trace of fear. Come over and we'll jump down. Miao Yixiong stopped in his tracks. Shiju also stopped. Two people and one beast stared intently at the two Bu elders. Shiju stopped because he was afraid that something would happen to them. And Miao Yixiong stopped because he was afraid that he would lose the bargaining chip to restrain Yiqing Luo. Grandpa Bu. Yiqing Luo's fingers curled tightly. You come with Shiju, I can bring you away. The two Bu elders looked at each other and smiled. Their brows were filled with gentleness. Young lady, thank you for everything you have done for the Bu family village. Thank you for caring for me and old madam. Elder T smiled contentedly as he said every word. His voice was on the verge of choking. We don't want to be your burden. We don't want to see you suffer because of us. As Elder T spoke, tears rolled down from the corners of his eyes. You are a good girl with a kind heart. We can't bear to see such a good girl like you suffer for us. Grandpa Bu. Yiqing Luo's heart tightened. She who had never been rich in emotions, couldn't help but feel a sour feeling at the corner of her eyes. I'm not making things difficult for you, and you're not my burden. In the beginning, she had helped them in the Bu family village. It was because the simplicity of the Bu family village had moved her. He was used to the darkness of the world. She could see a trace of clean color, which made her feel very comfortable. Later, she came to the Miao tribe and saved the two elders of the Bu family. Part of the reason was because of Miao Yi. But more than that, it was because she really felt sorry for the Bu family's elders. She didn't like to meddle in other people's business. However, he was not a cold and heartless person. She was serious about saving the two elders of the Bu family and bringing them away from the Miao tribe. Chapter 2487. I think the old man should have told you about our matters. Back then, for the future of the next generation, I brought my family and moved to Qinghua City. Our village, at least 30 over people, brought their families along with them. But we had just left the Bu family village when we were stopped by the Miao people. Grandma Bu stared at Miao Yixiong with her teary eyes. Her eyes were filled with hatred and resentment. The Miao people carried out a brutal massacre on us without any explanation. The 30 over people who left the Bu family village, from the elderly to the newborn babies, all died tragically in the hands of the Miao people. Those people were the hope of the Bu family village, the few youngsters. All died. Died in front of my eyes. My son and daughter are all dead. Only I survived. Shut up. Miao Yixiong's heart trembled. What he was afraid of was not Grandma Bu's hatred towards him. But he was afraid that Grandma Bu's words would bring out Yiqing Luo's hatred towards the Miao people and seek revenge for Grandma Bu. Grandma Bu gave a low laugh. Her laughter was filled with pain and mournfulness. Miao Yixiong. What people do, the heavens are watching. It's not that revenge is not coming, it's just that it's not time yet. You killed so many people in my Bu family village. In the future, don't even think about having a peaceful day. Miao Yixiong, the old man and I swear on our lives that even if we become ghosts, we will never let you off. We will turn into malicious spirits and haunt you forever. She laughed. The hoarse and aged voice had a hint of delight in it. She laughed for a long time. She slowly looked towards Yiqing Luo. The craziness on her face slowly turned gentle. Young lady. I'm sorry, really sorry. If it's possible, I hope you can avenge those innocent villagers in the Bu family village, so that we can die without regrets. Grandma Bu. Yiqing Luo understood Grandma Bu's current feelings. Seeing her own kin, her neighbors and good friends who had accompanied her for decades, die in front of her. No matter who it was, no one would be able to tolerate it. Grandma Bu had endured for such a long time. That was her biggest limit. And if it wasn't for I would have died when the Bu family village was massacred. She is a pitiful lady, without parents and no one to rely on. If it's possible, please help us, take good care of her. Grandma Bu. Yiqing Luo's heart trembled violently. She shouted at Shijue, quick! Bring Grandpa Bu and Grandma Bu over. Roar! Shiju roared, and its body turned into a bolt of black lightning, rushing toward the Bu family's two elders. However, in the end, Shijue was a step too late. The Bu family's two elders had already made up their minds. He didn't give Yiqing Luo any chance to persuade him to stay. At the moment when Shiju pounced over, they clasped their hands and looked at each other. Her eyes were filled with a warm smile. Then, he leaped into the crack, and both of them fell into the jade-green light. In an instant, he disappeared without a trace. Grandpa Bu. Grandma Bu. Yiqing Luo's eyes widened as she stared blankly at that crack. The two elders of the Bu family didn't want to be a burden to her. Resolutely, he chose death. They knew very well that in this battle between Gu masters and Xian cultivators, they were ordinary people. He would only be a burden. Therefore, in order to let her not feel guilty, in order to let her leave with peace of mind. Chapter 2488. No. No. Miao Yixiong was filled with terror as he staggered backwards a few steps. His back was plastered tightly against the wall. Beads of cold sweat rolled down his forehead. His entire body was drenched in sweat. He who had lost his bargaining chip and hostage. How was he going to negotiate with Yiqing Luo? Especially, his attitude earlier had completely infuriated Yiqing Luo. If Yiqing Luo wanted to kill him, in this place, this forbidden place which was isolated from the Miao tribe, he had no way to resist at all. Especially, earlier before Grandma Bu died, she specially requested Yiqing Luo to avenge the people in the Bu family village. Yiqing Luo was so concerned about that old fellow in the Bu family village. She would definitely kill him. The more Miao Yixiong thought, the more terrified he was. His entire body was trembling with fear. No way. He absolutely could not sit still and wait for death. He was the clan leader of the Miao tribe. How could he lose to a young lady? Miao Yixiong's vision slowly shifted to the side. where the worm-shaped hole was. A plan was formed in his mind. Just at this moment, there was a violent tremor in the hole. In an instant, rays of light that were as sharp as blades rippled out from the surroundings like waves. Boom, 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 a few loud sounds were heard as the ground shook. The four walls, which were as hard as iron, were sliced apart layer by layer. The jade-green rays on the broken walls were piercingly cold. Extremely neat. This violent tremor. It made Yiqing Luo and Shiju unable to stand stably. Yiqing Luo summoned Shiju back into the pet space and swiftly avoided the falling stones. Her peripheral vision swept past the crack behind her. Yiqing Luo's eyes flashed past a sliver of disbelief and astonishment. That crack was surging with countless waves of jade-green rays. As though it was going to swallow everything in this hole. Oh no, the seal has been unlocked. Miao Yixiong stared at the sky full of jade-green rays, like waves, lingering around the entire hole. His legs felt weak as he laid paralyzed on the ground. Yiqing Luo's eyes were pierced by the jade-green rays. What did Miao Yixiong say? The seal has been broken. In his mind, old man Song's lamenting voice rang out. So, the final layer of the seal requires a husband and wife who possess absolute true feelings as a sacrifice. A freak combination of factors actually undid the Miao tribe seal. In other words, Grandpa Bu and Grandma Bu both jumped into this so-called seal, and became sacrifices to break the seal. The Miao tribe had guarded the seal for 700 years. It was unlocked. What exactly is this? Yiqing Luo had yet to finish her question. A majestic pressure completely enveloped her. The jade-green light devoured everything about her. All of his strength seemed to have been sucked out of him. His consciousness gradually faded away. His body weakly fell backwards. But Yiqing Luo didn't feel the pain from falling onto the ground. Her body was embraced into a greeting embrace. Yiqing Luo's breathing paused as she opened her eyes hazily. In his mind, a peerless demonic face of peerless elegance appeared. The man smiled at her. She was like a fox, charming and alluring. Her pink lips moved slightly as she silently spat out two words, "Ah Xian." Was Ah Xian here? Once again, when she met with a predicament, he was like a deity, descending from the heavens. But what entered her nose was an extremely elegant plum fragrance. No, this wasn't Ah Xian's smell. This person wasn't Ah Xian. Yiqing Luo's breathing became hurried. She wanted to struggle. But her entire body had no energy at all. The more anxious she was, the further her consciousness drifted. Ding! A melodious sound was heard from the pendant on Yiqing Luo's neck. Following that, a ray of light flashed out from that pendant. Chapter 2489. Inside the underground cave. Just as Yiqing Luo was engulfed by the jade light, a stone wall in the underground cave was blasted apart by a powerful force. Following that, a tall figure sped over. That pair of ink-like deep eyes saw the young lady who was descending from midair. That frozen face revealed a sliver of panic. He speedily went forward and held the young lady's soft body firmly in his arms. He lowered his eyes and gazed deeply at the young lady in his arms. His cold eyes gradually surfaced a sliver of gentleness and deep affection, Yiqing Luo. His voice was low and lingering, as though he was calling out his most beloved person's name, so affectionate. The young lady's slender brows creased slightly. Following that, her pink lips opened and closed, as though she wanted to raise her hand to pull him. The young man's eyes were filled with joy as he raised his hand and was about to hold the young lady's hand tightly. But, after seeing the shape of the young lady's mouth, the smile on his face slowly faded away. He regained his usual indifference, as though he was covered with frost. Ah Xian. The person she was calling was Dmo Xian. The surrounding jade light was like a wild beast that was brandishing its claws and fangs, swallowing everything. But, when the jade light touched the red-robed young man, it avoided him like a snake or scorpion. The jade light swallowed everything in this underground cave. But it forcefully separated the young man. Yi Qing Luo. The young man's voice was a little hoarse. He called out Yi Qing Luo's name word by word. His voice was cold and emotionless. You are mine, the person in your heart can only be me. The young man muttered softly, his voice was stubborn. He fixed his gaze on the young lady in his arms. His icy cold eyes flashed a sliver of red glow. Suddenly, he bent his head and kissed Yi Qing Luo's lips. Just at the moment when he bent over. Ding! A crisp sound was heard, in the silent underground cave. It was extremely clear. The young man had yet to touch Yi Qing Luo's lips. His eyes were stung by the intense white light in front of him. He had no choice but to dodge backwards. He raised his other hand to block his eyes. Bam! A gust of wind from a palm landed on his chest. His 5 viscera and 6 bowels felt like the world was turning upside down, and he was in extreme pain. He spat out a mouthful of blood as his body was sent flying. The girl in his arms was also taken away by an invisible force. Yi Qing Luo. The young man's cold eyes froze and he didn't even bother to wipe off the blood by the side of his mouth as he immediately flew up and charged towards Yi Qing Luo. It was as if the person who had just been slapped and vomited blood was not him at all. In his eyes, there was only Yi Qing Luo. Zhu Wuxin, you want to take advantage of my absence to molest my woman. Are you courting death? A mellow voice faintly sounded. When the youth heard this voice, his body froze, and a trace of surprise flashed across his eyes. It was as if he couldn't believe it. How could that person appear here? Green light flickered. Gradually, a tall and straight figure appeared in front of him. His purple robe fluttered, and he stood tall and straight. On that peerless face, his thin lips were pursed into a thin line, and his face was filled with displeasure. This man. Just by standing in front of him, Zhu Wuxin felt a powerful pressure that was continuously exerting on him. Zhu Wuxin's cold eyes flickered slightly, as he slowly met the man's eyes, which could shake everything in the world. Overlord. He spat out the words coldly, as his vision shifted, as it focused on the unconscious young lady in his arms. Give her to me. The man's deep and handsome face surfaced a sliver of coldness. This overlord's woman naturally has this overlord's protection. She's mine. Zhu Wuxin didn't give in at all, she has always belonged to me. Dmo Xian's eyes turned slightly cold, as he lazily squinted his peach blossom eyes, as his lips curled in disdain. Following that, his finger hooked lightly, as he lifted Yi Qing Luo's lower jaw. Chapter 2490. A kiss. Not long after. Just purely using his warmth to warm her lips. Dmo Xian raised his eyes as he looked at him with a smile which didn't look like a smile. Yours. Zhu Wuxian's icy cold expression flashed past a sliver of emotion. In the depths of his deep cold eyes, numerous storms surged. What made him furious was not Dmo Xian's action. But, he clearly saw the young lady who was nestled in Dmo Xian's arms. Her brows were relaxed. Furthermore, at the instant when Dmo Xian kissed her, a faint smile surfaced on her face. And when Yi Qing Luo was in his arms, she was obviously rejecting him. Even her consciousness was swallowed. Dmo Xian was the only person on her mind. He was unresigned. And unwilling to let go. He had set his mind on Yi Qing Luo. Yi Qing Luo must belong to him. Qing Luo. Qing Luo. Zhu Wuxian broke out from the huge hole earlier and a few voices were heard calling out. Following that, a few figures rushed in hurriedly. How is it? Is Qing Luo all right? Did we make it in time? The few people who had just rushed in. When they saw the situation in the hole clearly, they were all stunned on the spot with a dazed look. In front of them, the surging jade light had enveloped everything in the hole. The surroundings were all covered by the jade light. Standing in the middle of the hole, the two people who were completely isolated from the jade light were especially eye-catching. Two men, different types, but both were equally outstanding, both handsome like gods. One evildoer, indolent and noble. Just a simple gaze, a minute movement, it was filled with an invisible pressure. Everything around the plunderer. One was cold as ice, domineering and ruthless. It was just a simple gaze, a casual action, but it was enough to send chills down one's spine. What kind of situation was this? Overlord. Yan Xiaoyi's eyes widened, and on seeing the man who was hugging Yi Qing Luo, she opened her mouth in shock. You're back. Dmo Xian raised his eyes slightly as he squinted at Yan Xiaoyi, not saying a word. How is Qing Luo? Is she all right? Why did she faint? Yan Xiaoyi didn't care if the overlord answered her question as she asked worriedly. I'm fine. Dmo Xian lowered his eyes, gently gazing at the young lady in his arms. You don't have to worry. It's good that you're fine. It's good that you're fine. Yan Xiaoyi heaved a sigh of relief and her gaze swept the surroundings. Where's that Miao tribe leader? Didn't he also come to this cave? Behind him, a petite figure quickly ran a few steps forward. And, where are Grandpa Bu and Grandma Bu? What happened to them? Tisk tsk. Zomo rubbed his chin and clicked his tongue. The power of this seal is quite strong. If it were an ordinary person, they would have been completely devoured by the power of this seal. Miao Yi's delicate body trembled. Impossible. Grandpa Bu and Grandma Bu. How could they? He escaped. A low and cold voice rang out indifferently. Everyone's gaze quickly followed the source of the sound. Gue Wu, who had an indifferent expression on his face, calmly said, when it sensed the powerful energy of the seal, a surge of energy escaped from the cave. Is it the Miao Patriarch, or Grandpa Bu and Grandma Bu? Miao Yi's face was pale, her voice trembling. Gue Wu didn't answer her question. Instead he raised a pair of indifferent, emotionless eyes, looking at Dmo Xian without blinking. Chapter 2491. These words caused everyone's hearts to tremble. All of their gazes converged onto Dmo Xian in unison. Not the overlord. Yan Xiaoyi was so shocked that she swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Then, who is he? He's still carrying our Qing Luo. Qiao Jin held onto Yan Xiaoyi's shoulders, his face also full of shock. It's undoubtedly Lord Dizun. Even if someone could disguise as Lord Dizun, but this temperament, besides Lord Dizun, who else could it be? Zhu Wu Axian fixed his eyes on Dmo Xian. A pair of cold eyes without any warmth. You are not him. His words were cold and emotionless. However, Zhu Wuxin's tightly pursed thin lips seemed to have turned into thin ice, betraying his anger at this moment. The glint in Dmo Xian's eyes seemed to be filled with a faint trace of ridicule. He narrowed his peach blossom eyes and laughed in a low voice. I am not him, so you think you have the right to touch Lil Luor. You are not him, and she is not yours, Zhu Wu Axian spat out coldly. His eyes were ice cold. Dmo Xian wasn't shaken by his aura but instead laughed lightly. So, you also admit that Lil Luo, is this Lord's woman? Zhu Wu Axian's expression turned stiff as he stared coldly at Dmo Xian. He knitted his brows tightly, already having doubts in his heart. This person could not possibly not be Dmo Xian. No one in the world could imitate such a temperament. Old man Gue Wu, if you don't make your words clear, this lord will not be able to explain. Dmo Xian raised his brows as he looked at Gue Wu, who had an indifferent expression. Master Gue Wu, what's going on? Is he really the venerable overlord? Lord Gue Wu, don't leave us hanging. You're making us nervous. Qiao Jin and Yan Xiaoyi anxiously looked towards Gue Wu. Gue Wu indifferently raised his eyes, before calmly saying, he doesn't count. What do you mean by not considered? Yan Xiaoyi was about to die from anxiety due to Gue Wu. He's only a clone of Di Zun, and not the real Di Zun. Gue Wu finally said the second half of the sentence. However, the few of them were somewhat dumbfounded. What was a doppelganger? What do you mean it's not my main body? The overlord should have extracted a strand of his consciousness and placed it in an object on Yiqing Luo's body. At specific times, this consciousness will turn into the overlord's clone and replace the overlord to protect Yiqing Luo. Gue Wu explained in a rare patient manner. His gaze was like a torch as he stared straight at Dmo Xian, but extracting one's consciousness and transforming it into a doppelganger, not only will it consume more than half of one's profound energy, if the doppelganger suffers any damage, the main body will also suffer the same injury. Then, he is. Hearing Gue Wu's words, Yan Xiaoyi was so shocked that she was unable to regain her senses. He can be called a venerable sovereign, but he's just a clone of a venerable sovereign. Chapter 2492. Zhu Wu Axian stared at Dmo Xian's face without blinking. His eyes flickered with a strange glint. Just as he was about to bend his head to kiss Yiqing Luo, the pendant on Yiqing Luo's neck surged with a terrifying energy. Dmo Xian's consciousness. It was hidden on the pendant that Yiqing Luo wore. He actually used this kind of method to stay by Yiqing Luo's side. His hands, which were hanging by the side of his body, clenched tightly into fists. Everyone was moved and envied the couple in front of him. It stung his eyes. That young lady was obviously in his arms. She was clearly his girl. On what basis did Dmo Xian beat him to it? He didn't like Dmo Xian. Didn't like to see Dmo Xian hugging Yiqing Luo. Didn't like to see Yiqing Luo in Dmo Xian's arms, that relaxed look. Didn't like those people who treated Dmo Xian as Yiqing Luo's lover, denying his identity. Dmo Xian acutely sensed the intense resentment emitting from Zhu Wu Axian. He tightened his grip on the person in his arms as he squinted his long peach blossom eyes. Zhu Wu Axian, you know very well that the person Lil Luo chose is me. If you really love Lil Luo then you should respect Lil Luo's choice. He paused as his lips curled into a smile. Isn't it said that if you really love someone, it is to see her happiness? Lil Luo and me together is happiness. That smile was filled with provocation. Zhu Wu Axian's pupils constricted as his deep and cold eyes shot out an icy chill directly towards Dmo Xian. Dmo Xian's brows rose as the smile on his lips grew wider. If you insist on getting Lil Luo, disregarding her wishes, then do you think you're fit to use the word love to express your feelings towards Lil Luo? I don't love her. An icy cold word was spat out from Zhu Wu Axian's mouth. The person she chose is me. Dmo Xian sneered. Are you lying to yourself? She said that she will marry me, then she must keep to the promise between us. She promised me that she is mine, Zhu Wuxin said stubbornly. Every word he said was filled with a sense of danger. Dmo Xian frowned slightly when he heard that. He also knew that for someone as stubborn as Zhu Wuxin, nothing he said would be able to change his deep-rooted beliefs. He could not be bothered to waste his breath on Zhu Wuxin. Lil Luo also did not have time to waste here. He lowered his eyes and looked tenderly at the disguised face of the person in his arms. He didn't lift his eyelids, but the person he was talking to was obviously Zhu Wu Axayan, Lil Luo, or is this Lord's woman, no matter if it's this lifetime, or the next lifetime. Forever and ever, she will always be my, Dmo Xian's woman. You will never have this chance. I won't let go. Zhu Wu Axayan's eyes were gloomy and cold as his deep eyes gazed deeply at Yiqing Luo. Soon after, he turned around and walked towards the huge hole that he came from without looking back. In an instant, Zhu Wuxin's aura disappeared from the cave. Yan Xiaoyi and the others were still in a daze towards this baffling fight for Yiqing Luo, battle which ended in such a baffling manner. Yan Xiaoyi blinked as she recalled Zhu Wu Axayan's unemotional denial earlier. He doesn't love Qing Luo. That look of his. Doesn't it look like he doesn't love Qing Luo? Ever since he found out that Yiqing Luo trespassed into the Miao tribe alone. Until he found out that Yiqing Luo had fallen into the Miao tribe's forbidden grounds, the dangerous sealed grounds. Chapter 2493. Zhu Wu Axayan, that madman, he simply released his perception like a madman and followed Miao clan leader, using brute force along the way to break through 1,000 meters deep hole, rushing over here to save Qing Luo. He actually said he doesn't love Qing Luo. Who is he trying to bluff? Recalling Zhu Wu Axayan's craziness earlier, Yan Xiaoyi was still feeling a lingering fear. Zhu Wu Axayan could be said to be at the stage where he didn't even care about his life. This lord will thank him on behalf of Lil Luo, Dmo Xian spoke calmly as he raised his eyes in warning. Yan Xiaoyi felt a chill down her spine as she sniggered a few times and replied in an extremely quick-witted manner, I know. Overlord, I will absolutely not tell Qing Luo about this matter. Qing Luo doesn't owe that madman Zhu Wu Axayan any favor. Dmo Xian nodded his head in satisfaction. Overlord, the split body cannot exist for too long. It will affect the original body greatly, especially in this place. You'd better return to your original body first. The silent ghost martial artist opened his mouth once again. When Kitty Lee heard that, she immediately walked towards Dmo Xian as she opened her arms wide. Overlord brother-in-law, hand sister over to Kitty Lee, quickly return to your original body. If sister knows that you hurt your body because of her, she will be upset. However, Dmo Xian hugged Yiqing Luo and avoided her. No worries. He spoke in a low and hoarse voice as he gazed at the person in his arms as his brows were filled with longing. This lord misses her. Sister misses you too. Kitty Lee blinked her spirited black eyes as she spoke in a serious tone. So overlord brother-in-law, quickly come back, don't let sister keep missing you. The arm which was hugging the young lady tightened once again. Kitty Lee didn't notice Dmo Xian's emotional changes. She only told overlord brother-in-law everything that she knew in her heart. She still wanted to say something. But her petite body was suddenly pulled by a strong force as she fell backwards. Kitty Lee cried out in shock as she wanted to struggle. But her body fell into a boiling hot embrace. A seductive voice laughed softly beside her ear, little wild cat, don't bother about overlord's matters. This lord misses you too. So. Mo, you, frivolous man. Kitty Lee's cheeks flushed red the moment she smelled the familiar bamboo fragrance. Mo narrowed his red phoenix eyes and stared at the shy kitten in his arms. His smile became more and more playful. TSK, you look like a red apple. It seems that the little wild cat also misses me very much. Who missed you? Kitty Lee struggled with a red face and scratched him with her claws. However, her hands were locked in Zomo's embrace. He smiled mischievously. Your face is filled with the words miss me, miss me, miss me. Kitty didn't. Kitty Lee's cheeks turned even redder. She stopped scratching Zomo and raised her hands to cover her face. This indirectly proved how much she missed Zomo. Enough, you two. Yan Xiaoyi looked at the dog food which was stuffed into her mouth unknowingly. Qing Luo is still unconscious, the both of you please be more serious. Kitty Lee used her hand to knock the man behind her. Did you hear that? I asked you to be more serious. Zomo smiled as he lowered his head and kissed her face. All right, this lord is serious. Serious your big head. Kitty Lee's face turned even redder. Chapter 2494. Dmo Xian seemed as though he hadn't heard Yan Xiaoyi's words. His gaze was fixated on the person in his arms. A pair of watery peach blossom eyes. Lingering, with infinite tenderness. Yan Xiaoyi's stretched out hand, quietly retracted back under this atmosphere. Xiao Jin sighed softly as he held Yan Xiaoyi's shoulder and comforted her softly. Forget it, Overlord has been separated from Qing Luo for such a long time, and earlier he was agitated by Zhu Wu Axian, so naturally he can't bear to leave Qing Luo. But his original body. Yan Xiaoyi looked at Dmo Xian worriedly. Overlord has his own sense of propriety. Xiao Jin patted Yan Xiaoyi's shoulder. From what I see, the moment he saw student Yi Qing Luo, he had already lost his sense of propriety. Gue Wu's indifferent voice interrupted Xiao Jin's consolation. His gaze looked straight at Dmo Xian. Overlord, you should be very clear that this is the Miao tribe's forbidden grounds. Gue Wu's voice was very calm, but the meaning in his words was hair-raising. The seal's power is getting stronger and stronger. Going against the seal's power will only exhaust a large amount of your doppelganger's power, and your original body will also suffer the same amount of damage. Everyone's gazes instantly congealed on Dmo Xian. Overlord, you and Qing Luo still have a lot of time. Go back first. We will definitely take good care of Qing Luo and will absolutely not let any other man get close to her. When Yan Xiaoyi heard that, she instantly panicked. When Qing Luo regained consciousness, to know that Dmo Xian not only left his doppelganger by her side, he even exhausted his power to go against the Miao tribe's seal's power. Wouldn't his heart ache to death? Gue Wu. Dmo Xian didn't reply Yan Xiaoyi but shifted his gaze onto Gue Wu as he spoke in a calm tone. I'll have to trouble you to bring them away from here. Gue Wu frowned slightly. You're not intending to leave. Dmo Xian looked at the person in his arms and nodded indifferently. Gue Wu didn't persuade him but really followed Dmo Xian's intention as he turned around and walked towards the hole which Zhu Wu Axian used his brute force to blast open. Zomo hooked Kitty Lee's slender waist. Little wildcat, let's go. Kitty Lee slapped his hand hard. Didn't you hear what Master Gue Wu said? If Di Zun's brother-in-law didn't leave this place, it would consume his strength. How could Kitty leave my sister and Di Zun and brother-in-law behind? Silly Kitty, with Di Zun here, your sister will be fine. Zomo pinched Kitty Lee's pretty face. No. Kitty Lee's attitude was firm. She would never leave when her sister was in danger. I won't leave either. Yan Xiaoyi pursed her lips. Gue Wu stood at the entrance of the cave and said impatiently, it's fine if you don't want to leave. Di Zun wants to die, but I don't. I don't have that much energy, and I don't need to waste my own strength. From the moment these people entered the underground cave, it was the barrier set up by the ghost marshal that was able to block the devouring power of the surrounding seal. Kitty Lee and Yan Xiaoyi spoke at the same time. Dmo Xian interrupted the both of them. This is little Luo's opportunity. The Bu family village's two elders used their own lives to open up this opportunity for little Luo. As for the rest, little Luo needs to complete it himself. Opportunity. Yen Xiao-yi and the others were stunned. Leave this place with Gue Wu, I will take care of little Luo's safety. Saying that, Dmo Xian carried Yiqing Luo as he turned around and walked directly towards the crack which was surging with jade green light. Chapter 2495. Yiqing Luo's consciousness was still in a daze, unable to gather. She felt that her entire body was floating, as though she was a feather. Lil Luo, Beside her ear was that familiar calling voice. That voice was filled with lingering love. It made her heart feel sweet for no reason. She wanted to open her mouth to respond to that person's call. But her lips seemed to be stuck tightly together. She had no way to open her mouth. Lil Luo, Lil Luo, Lil Luo, The calling voice was still going on. Sometimes it was far away, sometimes it was close at hand. However, the emotions contained in each voice were stronger than the last. Who was it? Who was calling her? She wanted to open her eyes. She wanted to open her mouth to call the person who was calling her. But her entire body was unable to move. She could only allow her body to float up and down, float, float, float. That calling voice became softer and softer. Gradually, she couldn't hear the voice anymore. Couldn't hear it. She couldn't hear it anymore. Suddenly, Yiqing Luo's heart twitched fiercely. A piercing pain made Yiqing Luo give a dull moan. The next moment, she felt that her feather-like body was being tugged by something fiercely. Her body finally had a sense of reality. Finally had a sense of weight. Following that, a warm touch warmed her pink lips which were stuck together, unable to open no matter what. The elegant sandalwood fragrance filled her nostrils. First was a simple touch. Following that, it was a series of violent attacks. The scorching aura started to rise. Yiqing Luo's feather-like body, at the same time as the temperature of her body rose, gradually had a real sense of reality. She was no longer like a feather, drifting with the wind. Her consciousness was no longer in a trance, without any feeling. The sandalwood fragrance's smell became thicker and thicker. Her entire being was almost corroded by this sandalwood fragrance. Her entire body was restless and the scorching feeling made her subconsciously react accordingly. Lil Luo, This time, the voice entered her ears extremely clearly. Right beside her ears, as though it was whispering the world's only treasure, extremely pampering. Yiqing Luo's heart melted. Hence. Under this fierce attack, Yiqing Luo gradually regained her senses. Ah! Xian, a hoarse voice spilled out from Yiqing Luo's pink lips with difficulty. She could finally control her body. Overjoyed, she was just about to call out the man's name. Unbeknownst to her, the man's large palm had already reached for her belt. He gently pulled. His robe loosened. Yiqing Luo suddenly shuddered and her half-dazed mind suddenly cleared up at this moment. The next moment, she opened her eyes. What entered her eyes was a pair of bottomless, inky eyes. In his inky black eyes, sparks of fire were burning. Some kind of emotion was very obvious. Oh! Before she could open her mouth, her lips were ruthlessly sealed again. The man's familiar face was deeply reflected in her eyes. Her heart was pounding. Her hands instinctively clenched his collar. Ah Xian, it really was Ah Xian. She wasn't dreaming, Ah Xian, he really came back. The thick longing instantly eroded Yiqing Luo's heart. The corner of her eyes gradually became wet. Perhaps it was because of the longing for Dmo Xian. Or perhaps it was because of Dmo Xian's fierce kiss. Oh! Suddenly, Yiqing Luo, who was indulged in the longing for Dmo Xian, suddenly widened her eyes, her cheeks flushed red. She raised her hand and grabbed a certain disobedient hand. She wanted to stop it. But the man kissed her even more fiercely. You're tuning into the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.